Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Have attempts at reconciliation resulted in anything? In today's story, you'll find out. Here is part 2 of the story. Don't listen to it in vain, and understand what was related to the first part of the enjoyable viewing. Maybe my breasts distracted her, I whispered to Lou. It's not about them, he replied, and in general, no one sees them in this monastic outfit that you put on. I wondered what was the matter. I wonder how she ended up here, he said. Do you know her? I asked. Not as well as you, fool, he said. I've never seen this woman in my life. I answered, Elvina, get your head out of your 5th place, he said. It could save our 5th places and our damn jobs. Why don't you do what you do for 18 hours every damn day? Maybe the problem is that you don't get enough sleep. What the hell are you talking about, Lou? I asked. You sleep a little over 5 hours a night, he said. The other 15 minutes, we have a night, and that's your whole day. What about the others? I began. You spend the other 18 damn hours daydreaming, reminiscing, and thinking about your worthless loser husband, he blurted out. Now, if you think about him while looking at her, everything will become very clear about who she is. I looked at her carefully, and even from the podium, I saw that she was also looking at me. It can't be her, I said. If it's her, we're lost. After I talk to her, she won't give us anything. We might have to pretend we're from different companies. Everyone on this side of the room, go to the large conference room on the north side of the building. You will register and be assigned to groups for corporate meetings and presentations starting tomorrow. This was our side of the hall. Everyone who had been here before looked around in confusion, as did the guards. People around us began to move toward the hall she indicated. Everyone on this side of the room, go to the auditorium on the south side of the building. A couple of Grace's assistants approached her and began to explain that she had made a mistake. Apparently, she was so confused that she forgot her wireless microphone was still on. Just shut up and do what I said, she ordered. There was obvious tension in her voice when she said the word just. You could clearly hear the T sound at the end, as if the word was made of concrete and she had smashed the end with a sledgehammer. The word shut up was even more pronounced. It began with a long S and ended again with that emphatically sharp T sound. The word damn in her performance was so strong that it deprived the rest of the sentence of meaning. It seemed like all Grace really wanted to say was just shut damn as a sign of her annoyance. It seemed like she had just found herself in a very bad situation and was urgently looking for a way out. Or I'll find someone who can, she added. All of her assistants on stage stepped back and began to look for other things to do. Grace quickly headed toward one of the exits, but a friendly employee blocked her way. He pointed to another door as if to tell her that she was going the wrong way. Grace tilted her head as if looking at him from a different angle, and he turned pale, almost hitting his head against the wall while trying to clear her way. He seemed to realize that Grace had some kind of superpower that allowed her to introduce him to the unemployment line. I don't know what made Grace lose her composure, but something was clearly going on. Even during registration, there were problems. People kept telling us that this was usually what Grace did. It was also obvious that Lou and I were the problem to begin with. We didn't know what type of account we needed to register for, so we didn't know which group to join. When registering, the account parameters were outlined both in the email and in the package of documents, said the woman at the counter. It's a pity Grace isn't here. Have you read the package? Lou just looked at me, confused. I looked at him angrily. Elvina, please tell me you read this damn package, he said. You got a copy of it too, I said. You're the boss, Lou. I'm just your assistant. It's your fault, not mine. You'll soon become an unemployed assistant, he hissed. I have a solution, said the woman. She called over a large Hawaiian guard who hurried towards us. Take these two to the auditorium, she said. They can listen to Cal speak, which will give them an idea of the different types of accounts. They can then review the packet during lunch and register during the next session. Grace would probably do it differently, but right now that's all we can do. The security guard, who clearly did not want to walk through the entire huge building, noticed a golf cart that was used to deliver mail. He borrowed it, figuring that he would return it long before the delivery boy finished his rounds. He drove us quickly through the large building to the auditorium, much faster than Grace, who had to walk and constantly stop to answer questions. It turned out to be a very bad decision. The security guard also decided to save even more time by ushering us through a side door of the auditorium, past a line of people. This way, he could quickly return the golf cart and get back to his business, which was doing nothing. I have always been amazed at people who are in such a hurry to return to idleness. As soon as we approached the door, everything went wrong. All the elements necessary for a disaster were lined up in one row. "Hey, Cal," the guard yelled at his boss. Cal looked up and waved back. Another security guard, who was guarding the stage entrance, opened the door, and two men, Cal and my boss Lou, tried to walk through the door at the same time. Many of those who were heading to the other door saw that the entrance to the stage was open and that there was no line, so they rushed there. Cal looked up, and I realized that he was the amazing surfer guy who had driven the Mustang on the beach that morning. At that moment, something clicked in my head. I hadn't been able to see him up close this morning, but now we were only 2 feet apart, and my mind exploded with a flash of recognition. That fire was quickly put out because before my mind could fully process it, Cal saw Lou smiling at him. Cal's face, already tanned from years of sun exposure, darkened even more as rage took over him. Cal rushed at Lou and hit him. Grace ran up. "Oh damn," she said, looking at him. "Looks like you already know everything." "What? Why?" Lou asked, slightly confused. "Get that idiot out of my building now," Cal shouted, beside himself with rage. "Has he checked in yet?" The guards and Grace looked lost. "It doesn't matter," Cal said. "I know what company he works for. They will be blacklisted. We will never work with them as long as this stupid works there." "No," Lou said, trying to get up with blood on his face and a swollen eye. It looked like someone had called the police because a couple of Honolulu officers came over to figure out what happened. "Someone reported a beating," one of the officers said. No one said a word, not even Lou. The officer took out a notepad and began questioning the first guard. "I was just passing by in my golf cart," he said. "I saw this crazy old white guy rolling on the floor and punching himself in the face. I have a lot of work. If you need me, I can come to the station later and give a statement." Before the cop could stop him, he was already driving away in his golf cart. The policeman looked at the second guard. "I didn't see anything," he said. "I just arrived like you." He looked at the other guard who was driving away in a golf cart. "Damn, he forgot me," he shouted and ran after the golf cart. "Sir, who beat you up?" asked the policeman. Lou, who was still confused, simply lay down on the floor, pretending to pass out. At that moment, his phone rang. The policeman took the phone out of his pocket and answered, "Ma'am, he's hurt. Tell the guards that Sergeant Kino Amaka has given you permission to come back here." He dialed another number on Lou's phone and called an ambulance. The policeman looked around at everyone, trying to figure out who to question. When he looked at me, I just shook my head. Grace spoke with him for a few minutes, which gave the paramedics time to reach the site. "I need to look into this matter," the officer said. "Someone has to say something." Cal was still furious, and I noticed that the policeman didn't even dare approach him. Grace did all the talking. Events developed very quickly. 2 more huge Hawaiians approached, pulled by a little girl. She had the same almond-shaped Asian eyes as Grace, but her skin was much lighter. She ran straight to Grace, who was the first person she noticed. The girl's hand grabbed Grace, who looked down and smiled, picking the girl up in her arms. The similarities between them were striking. The policeman approached the medics examining Lou. I went there too. Mary came up at the same moment, looked at Lou, and shook her head. "Is he okay?" "What's wrong with him?" she asked the doctors. "Well, from a medical point of view," said the first medic, "his 5th place was kicked." "I agree," added the second medic. "Does he need to go to the hospital?" asked the policeman. "Not if they don't teach self-defense there," the first medic answered, laughing. "Who are you?" the policeman asked, turning to me. Everyone around me turned and looked at me. I didn't know what to say. I noticed Mary whispering something to Lou. I began. She's his assistant, Mary said. She wasn't here when it happened. Great. Just great, said the policeman. Nobody knows what happened here. Grace immediately attacked him. She reproached him for using profanity in front of the child and for his lack of professionalism. She told him that at the next Chamber of Commerce meeting, she would definitely discuss the whole incident and his behavior. She added that he was lucky that Cal had left. The policeman then dejectedly lowered his head and apologized. Grace told him to return to the station, promising to later send statements from everyone involved, including the victim or whoever he was. But the policeman began to protest. Grace simply looked at him and pointed toward the elevator. The little girl in her arms raised her hand and also pointed in the same direction. The policeman turned around and left. Then I noticed that Cal was really gone. Grace turned to her assistants and asked one of them to take Lou back to the hotel. But I need to stay here, he said. I need to register and get an account. We must clear up this misunderstanding. Why did this guy attack me? The little girl in Grace's arms looked at Lou and pointed toward the elevator. Did you hear what he said to the guards? Grace asked calmly. I'll try to calm him down. Perhaps when he cools down, he will look at this from a business perspective rather than personal feelings. If he doesn't change his mind, nothing can be done. Welln is not a publicly traded company, we do not have a board of directors, and there is no need for this. Cal owns 45% of the company, I own 39%, and 10% is held by one of our senior employees. Who owns the remaining 6%? I asked. Grace looked at me as if she wanted to bite my head off. She didn't even bother to answer me, she just pointed to the little girl in her arms. I am, said the girl. I don't think she even knew what she was saying, she just answered because her mom pointed it out to her. As Lou tried to get to his feet, Grace called out to him, we'll be finished here today by 4:30 or 5 o'clock. Why don't you come back here for dinner at 6? Then she looked at me and added, you can come too. In the end, all this crap is your fault. She turned around and walked into the auditorium. We were taken back to the hotel on one of those shuttles. All the way, Lou talked about how he could get painkillers for his face. We're on horseback, he said with a smile. Now they are obliged to give us an account. Everything worked out as well as possible, and You don't even know what I asked. He didn't even try to get you to sleep with anyone. Mary spat, what Lou began. Shut up, idiot. Mary said. You're not on a horse. In fact, you are even further from your goal than you were before. I'm filing for divorce. I'm tired of all this crap. No, Mary, he pleaded. Whatever I do is wrong. I will stop it. It's not about us, she replied. It's all about him. Before he left to give his speech, I really looked at this man. I thought about his motives and everything he had done, and from the look on his face, I knew everything I needed to know. No matter how it ends, you will lose. You're a damn loser, and you deserve to lose for what you did to him. I didn't do anything to him. Lou spat. This guy just started beating me up for no reason. If he gives us an account, I won't sue for assault. If he doesn't, I'll sue him, and he'll go to jail, and his reputation will be ruined. Lou, you idiot, she said. He owns this huge building. I'm sure he has several lawyers who will acquit him. He may not even need their services. I talked to several people. You have no witnesses who would claim that he touched you at all. No one admits to having seen anything, except for one guard who claims that you beat yourself up. And by the way, did you see the expression on his face? This man wants to kill you, and here on his territory, he can do it and remain unpunished. This is all a shame. I won't go down with you. It's time for you to get what you deserve. You have caused this man more pain than anyone can imagine. I didn't do anything to him. Lou spat again. Mary simply shook her head. You slept with his wife, you idiot, she spat. You destroyed his whole world, and he built a new one. And judging by the expression on his face, he is ready to destroy this world too in order to burn you. I thought about the other women Mary had told me Lou had slept with before me. Who is his wife? I asked. Maybe we can talk to her and get her to help us." "Elvina, shut up," she spat. "You're as stupid as Lou. Don't you notice anything at all?" She just looked at me, shaking her head. I heard a noise as if water was rushing through my ears, and I almost lost consciousness. She still said it. "Cal is your husband, Danny Elvin," she said. "That's why your detectives probably couldn't find him. They were looking for Danny Caldwell." Think about it. Caldwell, Cal as a first name, D as the middle initial, and Val as the last name. Their company is called Win. Cal Val and Grace Van. How do these two idiots still have jobs? She just looked at us. "I think you'll lose her soon," she said. Lou just sat there, stunned. "Was it that loser?" he said. "He must be taking steroids." "And his wife?" I said. "She was the awkward Asian girl he taught at his place." Now I remember. I went to his work the day after he left to see if they knew where he might be going. You know, I thought that if he had another job, he would need references. She cried all the time and did not speak to me but continued to look at me, assessing me from head to toe as if trying to evaluate my strength. This little brat took one look at my every weakness and used them to steal my husband. Mary started laughing. "Alva, you want a prize?" she said. "You're probably even dumber than Lou. First of all, she didn't steal Cal or Danny or whatever we call him now. You pushed him away yourself. You called him all sorts of names while this other idiot here had an intimate with you. Secondly, they are not married. Hawaii is still part of the US, and you never divorced him. I don't know about the emotional component, but legally, you are still his wife. He became a multimillionaire after he left you, so I don't think you'll get much money from him. But that's just one of the questions I'm wondering." I looked at her. "Why didn't you ever divorce him, Alva? Did you wait 5 years for abandonment to be recognized, or 6 years for him to be declared legally dead? How about 100 years? Because I love him, and we're not getting divorced," I spat. "Then another question arises," she said. "He has a hot new Asian wife who is seductive and attractive. This trash looks better than you, Alva. Despite her smaller breasts, she outshines you. She is younger and smarter. He is again surrounded by lawyers. Why hasn't he divorced you yet, Danny? Cal, why didn't she divorce you?" The question hung in the air for several minutes after Grace asked it. "She didn't need to," I said. "She has everything she wants. She has this big jerk for a night, and his wife probably doesn't know anything about it." Grace crossed the room, and I noticed again how beautiful she was. She laid down on my lap and looked up at me. Either the wife knows everything perfectly well and is happy with it, or she may even be in cahoots with them. Grace raised her eyebrows in faint shock. "What's on your mind, Gracie?" I asked, taking her hand to stop her movement on my leg. "What's on your mind?" she retorted, asking the same question. "It's unusual to see you lose your composure. I think our strategy should be to divide and conquer." "And how do you propose to do this?" I asked. "First, you tell me what you're going to do with this guy," she said. "Do you want to give his company an account or leave him with his nose in the dirt?" "Hell no," I replied. "I want to organize a nuclear war. As George Bush said, call his company, find out who their CEO is, and tell him that we have decided not to work with them at this time due to an incident with their representative. Tell him that we like a lot of the things they do, but we have no information about their products or services because the person they sent didn't have a presentation. Top it off by saying that we would like to work with them but let them send someone else, and never send that idiot again." "I like this plan," she said. "We give them carrots, and they punish him with a stick. They'll probably fire him on the spot. Part 2, what do we do about his attack claim?" "Talk to his wife," I said. "I think you should do it yourself." "Actually, I was hoping you would," she said quietly. "You need to deal with this once and for all. You have too many unanswered questions." "I have no questions," I said. "Yes? And how?" she blurted out. "Damn, you still love her. You and she should sit down and discuss everything. Maybe I won't even strangle her, as I've dreamed of doing all these years. Hell, maybe I'll get lucky, and she won't want you anymore. Even with all the improvements I've made, you're still a bit of damaged goods right now. Actually, what I meant was that you should talk to that guy's wife, I said. Oh, I thought you were talking about your wife, she said. You are my wife, I said. Everyone knows this. Everyone thinks so, she said. Damn, I wish this were true, Elvin. Damn it, I wish this were true, she said. True, I said. Elvin, do at least a little work here, dear Mary said. As I told you less than 3 seconds ago, this man still loves you. Why would he do this? I asked. Since we left Wynn, I haven't been able to stop crying. You said it yourself, Mary. I hurt him badly. He probably hates me. And he has this crap. I hate her, Mary. I hate the hell out of her. Mary grinned. Why do you hate her? What? I asked. Your future employment with the company largely depends on it. That idiot over there, she pointed to Lou, who was sleeping on the couch in their room, destroyed his career and his marriage. The painkillers put him to sleep, and Mary refused to let him sleep in the same bed with her since she said she was divorcing him. Think logically, she continued. If you want to keep your job, your best hope is to sign a contract with them. Remember how my idiot soon-to-be ex-husband thought he had an advantage yesterday because your ex beat him up? In fact, you do have an advantage. You need to do 2 things. First, distance yourself from Lou so you don't go down with him. Secondly, this cunning is now your best friend, go and talk to her. She already said you should come to dinner tonight, didn't she? I nodded, but my face still showed pain. So, after dinner, explain to her that if she gives you the bill and arranges for you to become a representative of her company, you will simply leave and not bother her anymore. You would be provided for, if not for life, then at least for as long as your company wants to advertise with them. And, Elvina, be smart with this chance you've been given. Go back to school and learn all this new tech stuff so you don't get sent into early retirement. She looked at me and smiled. But we both know you won't do that, right? She grinned. You don't want to be friends with that sneaky, because, like you said, you hate the hell out of her. Even though this has never said a single bad word to you, you can't stand her. She modeled herself after you, minus the breasts. But you just want to beat her up, don't you, Elvina? Do you want to throw her on the ground and hit her in the face until your arms get tired? Yeah, I said loudly. I no longer cried, and energy flowed through my body. Elvin, have you ever fought in your life? She asked. I looked at her. No, I admitted. So you will most likely get beaten, right? She asked. I'm sure I could beat her, I blurted out. Believe me, Elvin, I couldn't, she grinned. Do you even know why your hands are turning into claws right now? Do you know why you hate this woman so much? Because she's a sneaky, and I don't like her. I blurted out. Elvina, this is how many women look at you, they hate you without knowing why. Because you look the way you look. It's usually even more specific, maybe some guy they like is always staring at your breasts and doesn't notice them, so they hate you for having something or someone they want. Does this mean anything to you? I didn't say anything, I just looked at her. Elvina, forget all that nonsense you read in magazines about female solidarity and how we all have to stick together to find our place in a male-dominated world. The people who deal the most insidious blows to women are not men, they are other women. Women just hate women. I read an article about a business founded by a woman who was wronged during a divorce. I think her husband left for another woman or something like that. In general, she only hired women. Everything went fine for a while, and then they started getting very sarcastic. They created all sorts of cliques in the office and began to whine and complain about being assigned physical work. They believed that the work involved in lifting and sending something was less valuable. To reduce tension in the office, she hired a man to fill these positions. He wasn't an Adonis or anything, he was just a guy. He was married and had a child. In less than 2 months, he had to quit because all these women, who previously didn't even want to go near the warehouse, started fighting for the guy and his job. He was not interested in any of them, and they only pursued him to prove that they were more desirable than other women. What does this have to do with me? I asked. You only hate her because she has what you want most, she spat. And instead of trying to make peace with her to save your job and your future, you would rather fight her, even though you already said that you have no chance of getting him back. This is stupid. I said I think I'm stupid. No, stupid, she said. It's called love. Then I started crying again. Damn, stop crying, she said. I'm not sure the carpet will hold up to all these tears, and when there's a flood here, I don't know how to swim. I can't help myself, I said. Do you know how much it hurts me, Alvina? Why do you think Danny, or whatever his name is, beat up that idiot? She asked. Think about it. He's got a smart chick, a successful business, a great life, and probably $1 million. But he didn't look very happy. If his life was full of joy, he would move on. Why do you think he attacked Lou? I just looked at her. Come on, Alvina, connect the dots. Lou isn't a threat to him, and he doesn't know it. But you never were. You've got poor old Lou crawling on his lap, but he just looked at Lou and did what you just described wanting to do to the cunning. And now we're back to where we started. Your husband still loves you. She looked at her watch and shook her head. It's good that I'm smart and not beautiful. Most people don't pay attention to me, but I notice everything. Did you notice the girl? A little version of a sneaky? I said yes. She's already like a mother. I'll bet you $50 that girl isn't her baby, Mary said. I bet, I said, although it doesn't matter to me. Haven't you seen her eyes and face shape? It's like looking at a photograph of her when she was young. Remember this, said Mary. You better go and clean yourself up. Apply more moisturizer to hide the bags under your eyes. You look terrible. She crossed the room and hooked her leg around Lou's waist, rolling him off the couch and onto the floor. Why did you do this? He groaned. It hurts. Because it's time for us to get ready, she spat. You could have just said it, he said. I'm in a lot of pain right now. My head hurts, and I can barely see out of my right eye. You're lucky, she laughed. Your face is badly damaged, at least you don't have to look at him. Alvin, call room service. I need a large paper bag. Okay, I said, but I don't think we're expected to bring anything. I chuckled. That's not why I'm asking for a package, she grinned. It's there to cover Lou's face so I won't see him. Mary, can I have another chance? Lou groaned. I don't want to get a divorce. I love you, I've always loved you. She simply shook her head and walked into the bathroom to start getting ready. An hour later, we were already in the elevator going up to the top floor of the Whelm building. With each passing moment, my stomach became more and more knotted. The people below seemed to know who we were and why we were here. When we reached the 5th floor, the elevator stopped, and we had to transfer to another elevator, which required a special key to reach the top floor. When the elevator doors opened, there she was. She studied me carefully with her eyes. You look like crap, she said, then shook her head. She looked at Lou and started laughing. He looks like a raccoon with a disease. Mary laughed too. I wanted to make him wear a bag over his head, but I thought it would be better in the long run and less humiliating for him to just learn to deal with the consequences of his actions. Okay, we have a lot to discuss, Grace said. I made a reservation at a great restaurant. We can eat while we do business. I love negotiations. She entered the elevator. Is Danny or Cal coming? Mary asked. Oh, of course not, said Grace. If he even saw your husband, he would lose his temper. You know what men are like sometimes. I find it difficult to control it. We don't need to make things worse, but don't worry. Whatever we decide, he will agree. He can't refuse me. She looked me straight in the eyes when she said this. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. She smiled, noticing my pain, and I couldn't help it, tears flowed down my cheeks. Oh, damn, she said. She reached into her purse and took out a handkerchief. Very carefully, she patted my face and wiped away my tears. If you mess this up, I'll ruin you, she hissed, then entered the elevator. I wondered why she cared so much about dinner tonight if Danny wasn't going to come. Perhaps it was a matter of maintaining a corporate image. They were one of those young, fast-growing companies, projecting the image of a fun workplace where all the employees were extremely happy was part of their strategy. I tried to get into the elevator, but she blocked my way. I was about to tell her that I could pretend to be happy if she gave me some time when she almost growled at me. "You're not going," she said. "I can handle it," I said. "I can pull myself together. I won't disgrace you. I need to talk to you about something too." Her voice sounded almost compassionate. "I have done a lot for you, don't make me regret it. Remember what I said?" Then the elevator doors closed on me. I didn't know what to do. Should I go back to the hotel? It seemed like no one bothered to tell me what to do. "Cal, Danny looks like no one bothered to tell you what to do," I said. Even seeing her from afar, I felt something inside. She had started wearing her hair in a long ponytail, just like I always liked. Her face looked a little older than it should have, considering it had only been 5 years. My heart beat even faster when she turned to me. She reached for the wall to keep her balance. I really thought she was going to fall. "I thought we were going to dinner," she said. "No, we'll stay here," I said, waiting for her reaction. You, and me," she said hesitantly. "That's how I understand the meaning of the word we," I said. She slowly walked towards me, and it seemed like she was trying very hard not to rush toward me and hug me. She hesitantly began to raise her hands toward me, and I took a step back. "Please don't," I said. I didn't know if I said it more for her benefit or for my own good. My heart was beating like crazy. I almost fainted from being so close to her again. I thought I was through with all this. "Danny, she started to say something, but a loud bell rang. The elevator opened right behind her, and a guy with a cart wheeled her out of the elevator and into the cafeteria. "One evening, Frankie," I said. "Could you take this up into the garden?" Her eyes opened wide, and she smiled. When Frankie returned to the elevator with the cart, she looked at me again. "I can't believe this is happening," she said. "I mean, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what we're doing or why, I'm just glad." Then she started crying again. I just wanted to take her into my arms and make all her tears disappear. "Actually, Grace arranged this," I said. Her eyes opened wide again. "She thinks we should talk. She says it will be good for both of us. She thinks you need to tell me something, and I need to hear it. She thinks this will give us both the opportunity to move on. I think she thinks that if you can get it off your chest, you can find relief, and for some reason, this will help me deal with all the pain and anger that she thinks I still feel." Her smile faded a little. I don't think that was what she wanted to hear. "Okay, I think Frankie has everything ready," I said. The polite thing to do would have been to place my hand on her waist and gently guide her up the circular staircase to the roof, but I wasn't sure what would happen if I touched her. When we got to the roof, the garden and play area amazed her. No one expects to see a real jungle on the roof. I think the gazebo and pool are a bit much, but it was Grace's idea. "Do you still like lobster?" I asked. She smiled and nodded her head, doing that little movement where she bit her bottom lip, which always made me want her right there. "Do you still hate them?" she asked. "That's why I ate akake," I smiled. We sat down opposite each other and started eating. She looked at me as the sun began to set. "Danny, I never stopped." "Alva, maybe you can just say what you wanted to tell me," I said. Her eyes narrowed a little because she wasn't used to me dictating how things would go, but now I was making my own decisions, and she would have to come to terms with it or not. "Danny, I know what you saw, and I'm so sorry. You have no idea how sorry I am and how much I wish this never happened. But there's a reason, and I just ruined everything. I ruined my whole life for something I already had." Tears flowed from her eyes like I had never seen before. I hadn't seen or heard pain like this since the night I left her. I began to realize that somehow her pain was at least as bad as mine. "Elvina, we have all the time you need," I said. I extended my hand to her, and she took it. Her touch was like grabbing a live wire. My brain instantly restored synaptic connections that had not been used for a long time. Something indescribable was happening inside me. I led her to the gazebo with the soft pillows. I sat down, and she sat next to me. Not only did she not let go of my hand, but she pressed herself against me as we sometimes did in bed when we were really close. "I'll start from the beginning," she said. "This will probably make you hate me even more, but I need to get this weight off my chest. Do you remember your friend from college?" "Yes," I replied. "She left me for some football player. She tried to come back to me after he left her, but I was already with you. She complained that he never really wanted her, he didn't take her on dates or introduce her to friends. He just had an intimate with her and then suddenly stopped communicating with her." "Danny, it was me," she said. "You gave me a locket." She unbuttoned the top of her dress and took it out. I couldn't help but look at her breasts. They seemed even bigger than I remembered. I still looked at the medallion. She opened it, and I was stunned by what I saw. Inside were 2 photographs of me. She noticed my surprise. "What did you think you would see there?" she asked. "Probably Lou," I blurted out. "Danny, urine," she said. "I love only you, that's my whole problem. Anyway, when you gave me that locket, it wasn't about him. You could have given me flowers, chocolates, or something else. It just lets me know that you are the one I need. I suddenly became obsessed with you. I didn't care what you looked like, I didn't care what others thought of you. I wanted you. But you were such a good guy, I practically threw myself at you, and you remained faithful to that damn Belinda. I realized that you cared not about my appearance but about me. Damn, Danny. My mom was the older version of me, and you remember what happened to her. I needed someone to love me for me forever. You were the one I wanted, and Belinda was just getting in the way. I arranged for one of the guys on the football team to start courting her with the intention of separating the 2 of you. I promised him an intimate if he did it." She started crying while telling me this. I knew it was difficult for her to talk about all this. I started running my fingers through her long golden hair. She raised her head, and I removed the elastic to let her hair fall down. "Danny, I know how hard it was for you to get over the breakup with that girl. I tried to make this as easy as possible for you. I came to see you every day and learned a lot about you. I also constantly let you know that you could have me anytime and anywhere you wanted, but you didn't do that. I started to think that you only wanted me as a friend. And there are a few more things you need to know because they are important. First of all, I actually slept with that football player guy. I promised to do it, and let's face it, I was a healthy girl and needed night back then too, but it was only once. It led to the longest intimate pause of my life while I waited for you to decide that you wanted me. If you remember, I almost lost you. I don't think you would have slept with that girl on the first date, but if things had worked out between you 2, I might have had to do something with her. Even then, I felt that I didn't deserve you and that I stole you. But Danny, I love you so much, and we succeeded, didn't we?" I nodded and smiled. "In a way, it's nice," I said. "And like you said, we worked it out. So if you're looking for forgiveness or anything like that from me for this, you can forget about it." "Why?" she asked in shock. "We were happy," I said. "Guilty," she replied. "I like it when you call me that," she said. "I don't let anyone else call me that. What I meant was that I have no idea how things would have worked out between me and Belinda. Very few people marry their college girlfriends. There's also the fact that if she was willing to leave me simply because another guy showed interest in her, then she didn't love me." I massaged her temples as she held my hand. Her left breast was pressed against my stomach. Her eyes suddenly opened. "What?" she asked. "I think I was sure that you loved me until then," I began. "Until what?" she asked. "Until I realized it wasn't. I said I was caught in unexpected storms in the ocean that came out of nowhere. One second, the sun is shining, and suddenly you are rowing on a board to the shore, lightning flashing everywhere, and the waves becoming huge. I had never seen such a drastic change as the one that happened to Elvina when I said she did not love me. Her hand moved faster than anything I had ever seen. She hit me so hard and fast that I felt dizzy. Don't you dare say that, she spat, and began to cry again. You can say you don't love me. You can call me a woman of easy virtue. You can say you never want to see me again, Danny, but don't ever say I don't love you. Because I simply do. Why do you think I'm so unhappy all the time? I lost our home. I live in a tiny, disgusting apartment just so I can spend most of what I earn and what I can get from Lou on private investigators to try to find you. Last year, I spent over $12,000 just looking for you. I have a lot of fans, and I refuse everyone because they are not you. Then she looked at me, and I saw rage and pain in her eyes. Don't you understand, Danny? Haven't you listened to your own damn song? What? I asked. Which song? When the pain ends, she said. Don't you remember the words? Without looking back, I know I can live without you. I was puzzled. Yes, Danny, she hissed. You left and never looked back. You've built yourself a wonderful life here in paradise. You, as the song says, can live without me. Damn, you live better, much better, without me. But have you ever thought that I can't live without you? Elvina, it hurt me to see you with Lou, and both of you called me names and made fun of me, she said quietly. Danny, I didn't mean a word of it. If I could take it all back, I would. You just don't understand how much I loved you. Do you remember how often we skipped work and just stayed home lying in bed together after being married for 12 years? Damn you! I smiled, remembering this. Somehow, despite her outburst, we hugged each other again. Danny, this whole Lou thing was about you. I thought I was using him, but he manipulated me. I wanted you to work with me in the same company. Maybe we wouldn't be in the same department, but I hated being apart, even for 8 hours a day. I always said, I wish Danny would work here. Lou knew the owner of the company you worked for. They loved you and didn't even think about firing you. You were so loyal that you would never leave on your own, so just like with Belinda, I had to take you with me. Lou promised to provide your company with a replacement who would do your job just as well but would do it for much less money, being younger and fresh out of school. Lou even persuaded our company to pay for the training costs. Then you would come to work for us, and I could come to you anytime I wanted. I never cheated on you, Danny, and I know it was wrong, but I wanted you so badly. I thought it was all my idea, but Lou was just manipulating me. I never enjoyed night with him, and his ego couldn't handle it. That's where the whole "oh, your husband is a weakling" thing came from. That's why I knew you would be fired. I didn't care if you got fired because I wanted you to be with me. I also didn't know that you would ever see or hear this. Danny, if I really felt the way you think I did, would I have run out of the office the way I did? You were everything to me. I know what I did was wrong, but I've always been cunning. That was my last plan, but it blew up in my face and ruined my life. Danny, I would do anything to get that time back. I would do anything to have you be a part of my life again. I would become your woman of easy virtue, your casual lover, anyone, just to be with you again. What about Grace? I asked. She seems to think you don't love her. To hell with it, Danny. If I have to share you with her, it's still better than nothing. But you have to remember that in my ideal world, everything revolves around the two of us, just us. Maybe she can spend time with you and I can spend mine, but I don't like women, and in my mind, you belong to me and only me. There's no room for anyone else here. She could be there, and I'll accept it, but in my mind, there will always be just the two of us. Elvina, it will always be just the two of us, I said, repeating what I had just told her. I love you, Danny. You completely fill my heart, and I want to completely fill yours. I'll be honest with you, I will try to take up every square inch of space in your heart until there is no room left for anyone else. During the time we were apart, the only person I interacted with, the only man I spoke to, let alone had a night with, was Lou. I thought you already knew about him. Plus, he pays for private investigators to find you. I also hate having an intimate with him. He doesn't make me feel the way you do. There's nothing special about it. It's like a punishment that I have to accept for what I did to you. Do you think you can forgive me? I promise, I swear to you that for the rest of our lives, from this moment on, I will never touch another man or allow anyone else to touch me. No other man has ever touched my heart. It will always be just the two of us, he repeated. Then his face became sad. He stopped stroking my hair and moved slightly. Talk about unexpected storms. I realized that I was somehow mistaken. One moment, it seemed like he was about to make love to me. He was going to make me his again. The next moment, it felt like he was pushing me away. "Well, Alvina, thank you very much for coming," he said, straightening up and getting to his feet. "You really clarified a lot of things." Grace was right. I do feel better. He led me to the elevator. "Grace will probably contact you," he said. "I think we can arrange everything so that you and even Luke can keep their jobs. Tell him I'm sorry about his face. It's my fault." The next moment, I was already in a regular elevator, crying again. I got out of the elevator just at the worst possible moment. I walked out of the building, sobbing, just as a grinning Grace walked inside. "So, how did it go?" she asked. "Like what?" I replied. I hated this woman even more. Apparently, she somehow had my husband in her grasp, and he couldn't let her go. Fury took over me, and I swung at her. She dodged. "Have you ever gotten into a fight before?" she asked. I shook my head, and she laughed. "This is so sweet," she said. "Look, I know you're angry about something. Tell me, did you lie to him? I already told you not to ruin this." It took me hours to get him to agree. I just stared at her. "Okay," I shouted. "You won. He's yours. But I will never, ever give up on trying to get him back." "Yes, I know," she grinned. "You love him and everything. Just tell me how you ruined everything." "For what? To make you laugh at me even more? Like you really care?" I started. She pulled me back into the building and pointed out the guard, who ran up as if there were a fire under his feet. She pointed to the beauty salon, and he quickly pulled out a key ring containing 100 keys and opened the door. He looked around for the light switch, and she told him not to bother and thanked him. "Yes, you stupid fool," she began. "I really don't care. I want him to be happy at any cost. So tell me how you ruined everything." I told her how I told him everything. "Wait, you said you were ready to share him with me?" she asked. "I'll do anything for him," I said. "So what the hell went wrong?" "Looks like you did everything right," she replied. "I don't know," I said. I told her about the last things I had said to him, and her eyes widened. "Well, now you've really ruined everything," she hissed. "I just thought that you two had blown the intimate thing out of proportion to such an extent that reality could never live up to those expectations. Baby, you didn't just burn the bridges you built, you blew them to hell. It will take some time to get things right, if we can do it at all. Of course, it's partly my fault." "Why is it your fault?" I asked. "What did I do wrong? Why are you even trying to help me? I thought we hated each other." "I wouldn't call it hate," she said. "We just both want the same thing. In your case, it's to the point of despair and fear. In my case, I can't be with him right now. I screwed him up just as much as you did, only in my case, it happened quite recently and much worse." I looked at her, and my eyes narrowed. "Why are we here?" I asked. "This is not, well, Win. This is some kind of beauty salon." "Dear," she smiled, "Cal and I own this entire building. Whoever owns this salon simply rents space from us. We're not going to break anything, and we need a place to talk and see if we can fix your mistake. My life is bad enough as it is. I don't need Cal to find another reason to be sad about you." "I still don't understand what I did wrong," I said. "You know more about him than anyone on Earth, right?" She asked, "Who are the 3 people on Earth who mean the most to him?" "His mother, his father, and probably you," I said. She simply smiled. "You need to watch out for that jealousy," she said. "Of the 3, you guessed only 1. I'm on this list, but I'm probably in 3rd place and always have been. If I had played correctly, I could have been 1st. But fate and my stupid character played against me. To figure out how we can fix this, I need to fill in a few blanks. This could be a long conversation." "I have time," I said. "That's for sure, because I fired you," she smiled. "So the last thing you remember about Cal is him leaving you while a Tina Turner song was playing in your house, right?" I nodded, and just the memory of it made me want to cry. "Okay, It was hard for him too, she said. He did some very stupid things. You know that he picked up a woman on the road, and she tried to rob him. He tried to get her to kill him. You really shocked him a lot. Either way, he just kept driving until the road ended. The who tried to rob him was wearing a Hawaiian t-shirt. He took this as a sign. He sold his Mustang and came here. He got a job in IT at one of the large hotels while he was working at the old company where we met. He was tinkering with the program that would later become the basis of Win. Since he had nothing to do when he wasn't working, he completed the program. He began to realize that it could turn into something big, but he really had no idea how big it could become. He called me one Saturday afternoon when he decided to start his own company. You should know that I secretly had a crush on him from the first day we worked together. I was really looking forward to us working together and was very upset when I was told that I had to replace him rather than become his colleague. My boss should have calmed me down and explained that this was all just so we could work together. I was very angry at you for taking him away from me, and that's why I treated you so badly when you came into the office crying, trying to find him. In any case, as soon as he called me that Saturday afternoon, I was ready for anything. I withdrew all the money from my account and bought a ticket to Hawaii. I didn't even go back to work to say I was leaving. We spent about 4 months rewriting the code to make it more universal and stable, and we became even better friends. I wanted us to become something more, but I wasn't stupid. I knew how much he loved you, and I understood that it would take him a long time to get over you. You had that light, and of course, those breasts, but it was more than that. You had this confidence. He gave it to you, didn't he? I nodded. Basically, we didn't have a lot of money, so we rented an apartment and worked our shitty jobs, eating tuna and pineapples, as all the internet rumors said. Sometimes, we'd let ourselves get wild and go to Burger King, but mostly it was tuna and pineapple. We started slowly, and over the next 6 months, we increased the number of websites we had contracts with, as well as our customer base. You have to understand that he called me 2 months after you broke up, so within a year of him leaving you, we were already making money, and it was growing quickly. Once the money started coming in, we could have moved to a larger place, but we didn't. We stayed in our shitty little apartment, sleeping on the same couch. I slept with him almost without clothes, and nothing happened. You were still on his mind. I made the stupidest mistake right after we started making money. I called my sister Mona, who was a year older than me and completely lost. I thought I could get her to work with us and help her get her life back on track. I wanted to get her out of addiction and give her a stable life, but it didn't work. Some people don't want to work for something, there's no way to help them. Mona was 23 years old at the time, had 2 children from different fathers, and was addicted to several types of illegal substances. She left her children with my parents, who took care of them most of the time. When she came here, she moved in with us and continued to do nothing but take illegal substances. We had a big party to celebrate our first corporate client. Cal drank a little that night, and as you know, he doesn't drink. I think it was you. How could I? I asked. He still loved you, stupid. And I missed you very much. I think we all knew we were on the cusp of something big, and you weren't there to share it with him. Overall, I had a great time at that party. I danced and hung out with a lot of guys, and I did it on purpose. Like you, I was damn cunning, and like you, it backfired on me. My big plan was to make him jealous. He didn't even notice because he was completely drunk. When I solemnly entered our apartment, I arrived with my shoe missing and my hair disheveled. I was ready to make a scene. I was prepared to tell him that if he didn't like the idea of what I could do with other guys, then he'd better make me his. God, what an idiot I was. I walked into the apartment, pretending to be drunk and used, and saw Cal and my sister in bed together on the same couch that he and I slept on. I woke them up, called them all sorts of names, and left the apartment. He tried to talk to me several times, and I even quit the company. I rented my own apartment and went back to work in IT at a hotel. I should have noticed how confused he was, but I was too damn jealous to realize it. Of course, a few weeks later, I found out that my sister was pregnant. I moved away from them even more, and then I began my second great scheme. You see, I wanted to punish Cal. If he was going to fall in love with some woman and get her pregnant, then if he wanted to be with anyone other than you, it had to be me. Manny Manuga was a local surfing champion. He's the same guy who taught Cal how to surf. They are still very good friends. I started dating him and often showed up when they were hanging out to annoy Cal. When Manny asked me to marry him, I agreed. I never expected it to last long. Manny had been engaged 6 times. I just wanted to do it to annoy Cal. Damn, I loved him as much as you do, and he hurt me badly. Anyway, Manny got into an accident. When I was in the hospital visiting him, they brought my sister there too. She almost died on the operating table. I couldn't help it. No matter how much I hated that for stealing Cal from me, she was still my sister. She had good days and bad. I think she knew she was going to die one day. When I came to see her, maybe it was because of the painkillers, but she was in a strange mood. She started telling me all the disgusting things she had ever done to me since I was a child, and then she confessed to me how she had deliberately used Cal's depression at that party against him and how much he missed you. She gave him something to drink and put out for him when she had the most favorable moment for pregnancy. She called him Cal all the time. She planned to get pregnant so Cal would support her until the baby grew up. She also saw how much I was into him and just wanted him, like everything else I ever had. I felt like the biggest fool in the world. Who's the biggest fool? I asked. You, she chuckled. You were the first to lose him, and for an even stupider reason. I nodded and had to admit that she was right. I'd been punishing the wrong person this whole time. I felt like such an idiot. It was my own fault. If I had just stayed with him at the party like usual, she would never have been able to do this. If I had just been patient, Cal and I would be together. But by the time I found out about all this, I was already engaged to a disabled man, someone I liked but didn't love, and doing a job I hated, just to try to punish the man I loved for something he didn't do. I never visited my sister again. I hated that more than I could have ever imagined. I still married Manny because it was the only right thing to do and a kind of atonement for my stupidity. My job at the hotel couldn't cover the costs of Manny's treatment and mounting medical bills. I went and talked to Cal about going back to work. We were not yet in the Welland building at that time, but we had a good office. I didn't know what to expect, but we had a long conversation. I asked him if I could get a job at the company, and he laughed in my face. I was a little offended until he said that I didn't need a job because I owned part of the company, Elvina. I even have my own office with my name on the door. He put my share into a separate account. If I didn't already love him so much, I would have started loving him then. I reminded him that I had left him and quit my job. I wasn't really there during the hardest times when they moved from our apartment to offices. He told me that anyone who strives for success by screwing over their best friend and taking away what they worked hard for deserves nothing. I treated him badly for 8 months over something that wasn't his fault, and he still considered me his best friend. My stupid sister fell into a coma and died before the doctors could deliver the baby. She was supported by machines for another month until they were able to give birth to Elva. Cal and I are raising her, and she is a very happy little girl. Her father worships the ground she walks on. This is not the way he would want to have a child, and her mother was not the woman he would want to have a child with. But Dynamite can't separate him from his daughter, and neither can you. But I began. You, like everyone else, thought that Cal was her father and I was her mother because she looked like me, right? She asked, worse? I said, I thought she was your daughter, but I had no idea who her father was. It makes sense, she said. So when you started all this nonsense about you and him being together, he got mad. No matter how much he loves you, he won't get involved with someone who can't accept his child. I really didn't know she was his, I said. Elvina, he named her after you. Do you really think that I would let him call her Elv if she were mine? Get a grip, she said. So I really got into trouble, huh? I asked. Maybe not, she said, smiling. After all, I arranged for you to be fired, so I owe you a job. I'm terrible at this whole computer stuff, and he probably won't want me around, I said. It's true, she said, but you must be able to do something. Just let me handle this. Just let me handle this, I told her. The next afternoon, I said, isn't that what you told me, Grace? Yes, Cal, she said, smiling at me. I settled everything the way you would like. You gave that idiot the bill and convinced his wife not to divorce him. You gave him everything he needed to keep his damn job, and somehow Elvina got fired. How is this similar to what I would like? Well, in exchange for him signing a paper agreeing not to sue you, thus preventing the possibility of you getting a criminal record, I gave his company a Tier 1 account, she said. I looked at her like she was crazy. I convinced his wife that she was in a hurry, she continued. She should squeeze all the money she can out of him before she divorces him. I told her that she should wait until he was fired to divorce him. I thought it would bring you more pleasure. She agreed because I offered internships in our summer program for both of her sons while they were in college. Think about it. He'll get fired and then divorced at the same time. Plus, his kids will come home after every summer telling you how awesome you are. This will really get to him. Yes, maybe in 20 years when this happens, I said angrily. And Grace, you should have given them at least a level 2 score. They would get more screens and outlets, and we would get more money. They are a fairly large company. The first level is for a small business. Cal, she grinned, you developed the software, and I came up with the pricing structure and billing levels. I beckoned their director with a level 2 carrot. They can go to level 2 when I ask. I knew Grace had some nasty traits. As soon as they fight Lou, she grinned. I was assured that this would happen on the second or third day after his return. They'll let him work for a couple of days so he'll think everything's okay, and then when he feels confident, they'll throw him out for unsatisfactory performance. This guy can't even find a table, let alone create one. I gave them a discount so we could watch him get fired over Skype. What about Elvina? I asked. I told her honestly so she could start looking for a job, she said. If she ever calls or shows up here, I'll let you handle it. Dealing with your women is not part of my job description, I said quietly. Talking to her and getting reassurance was the best decision for both of us. It's a hard blow, but we're no longer right for each other. It's time to move on. By the way, I have a date tonight, she said. What do you have? I asked. Don't start getting upset, I said. You're a married woman, and I'm tired of being alone. For some reason, she just shook her head. Oh, before you go on your date, she said, you should probably stop by the house to meet the new nanny I hired. Elva met her this morning and already loves her. If you are with Elva and love her, she suits me, I said. Cal, she lives with you, Grace said. Big deal, I replied. The nanny's rooms are at the other end of the apartment from my room and Elva's room. I probably won't see her often. What was the last one's name? Cal, she said. The idea is to get you a live-in nanny so Elva doesn't have to run around the whole building and so you can focus on work. Maybe this way you won't be running up the damn steps in the middle of meetings or holding meetings on your garden roof while playing with your daughter. Who knows? After you get to know her better, you might want to date her too. I spent the rest of the day checking accounts and calling new clients to see how they were doing. There was no time to go home before the date, so I decided that I would meet the new nanny in the morning. Maybe I'd even sleep longer and have breakfast with her. The last nanny had been a 57-year-old woman who looked like a hobbit. Grace had a long history of hiring ugly women to be my secretaries and nannies. I knew Grace would thoroughly vet the woman and make sure she had good references before hiring her. There was also the fact that even with a nanny, at least one of Elva's huge guards was always in the apartment if I wasn't there, so I wasn't too worried. The date ended quite early, there was simply no chemistry between us. As I rode the elevator up to my apartment, I wondered when the last time was that I went out and actually had a good time with someone. As soon as I entered the apartment, my guard left and went home to his family. I sat down on the sofa and wondered for the 100th time that day where she was. Even though things didn't work out between us, I knew I would always love Elvina. But maybe it was time for that divorce. I looked at the coffee table and saw a bunch of drawings that Elva had done. They were little people, but pretty good for a 3-year-old. I liked that the nanny kept her busy with something creative that developed her mind and didn't just seat her in front of the TV or computer. In the morning, I would definitely compliment her. Of course, this also confirmed my theory that Grace had again hired a 60-year-old woman who probably didn't know how to use a computer. I took a shower and went to bed. I was exhausted. I must have been a lot more tired than I thought because I didn't notice anything until I felt a tickling sensation on my stomach. My eyes opened wide, and in the darkness, I could barely make out the face in front of me. "You always liked it," she whispered. I was shocked. "You should have told me," I whispered back. "Oh God," I breathed. "Elvina, we shouldn't." "We really should," she said. How much I missed that. The last word was drawn out as she went limp on me. "Maybe you should start dating and making love to your wife instead of trying to replace her," she said. "From what you told me, you've had enough practice." "I did it," I said. "And I regret it every time I think about it," she replied. "I lost 5 years with you because of this. It was the worst mistake of my life, and I swear I will never repeat it. If you need to punish me, you can do it. But I'm not a monster, I'm just a woman who made a mistake. You know that I love you. I've always loved you. And if you had even a piece of brain, you would understand that no fat, ugly, 50-year-old man will ever take your place in my life or in my heart." "You meanly hit me yesterday," she said, kissing me again. "How did I meanly hit you?" I asked. "Danny, you never told me about Elva, how you got her or what happened to you. You didn't give me a chance to tell you that I can accept and love every part of you, including your child. You just threw me out the door." "I'm not very proud of how she came about," I said, "but I love my angel so much that I would never give her up." "I would never want you to do that," she said. "I just want you back. And you want me back too. You love me." 3 days later, Lou was called into the office. He missed Elva in many ways. He promised Mary that he would never cheat on her again, but after the trip to Hawaii and all those women in bikinis, being in a room with Mary made him long for some relief. On the other hand, he was a hero in the office for landing an endorsement deal with Wynn. Even some of the young ambitious employees asked him how he did it, some begged to go with him on the next trip. Entering the meeting room, he felt great. He sat down, and his boss sat him down in front of the computer. "Lou, I need you to look at your department's expenses for the month and explain this transportation item to me," he said. "Oh, and you did great with Wynn. I bet you're happy for Elva." "What do you mean?" asked Lou. She returned to her husband. She was so excited when she called to tell him which fund to donate her latest check to. Lou just stared at the computer in front of him. He had no idea how to access the spreadsheet. He barely knew how to turn the damn thing on. "Hurry up, Lou," his boss said. "I don't know how to do this," Lou replied. The young man stood up and sighed heavily. "Lou, computer skills are a requirement for your job," he said. "Everyone here respects you and appreciates the services you have provided to the company for the last 14 years, but I have to fire you." 5 minutes later, Lou was in his office, putting his things into one small white box. It was pathetic to see how little he had actually accumulated during his career in this building. His sons were toddlers when he started working here. They were now grown men about to go to college and start their own careers. "Sorry," said a voice behind him. Lou turned to see an attractive young woman standing there. She looked like one of their interns, probably one of those students they hired to deliver mail and documents. This one was attractive. She was chewing gum and looking through the files she was carrying. "Are you Lou Grant?" she asked. "Yes, dear," he said. They changed their minds, he thought, as she handed him a folder. "You have been charged," she said. "Have a good day." 6 months later, Lou was moving into his new small apartment. His divorce was final, and his wife took everything. Lou looked around the small room and shook his head. He blamed that damn Elvina for everything. It was partly his fault, but if he had never seen how big her breasts were, he probably never would have pursued her. After Mary divorced him, he tried to contact Elvina and learned that she no longer worked at Wynn. She didn't work at all, she was simply relaxing and taking care of her husband and their daughter. He asked her to put in a good word for him because he was having trouble finding a job. He was desperate. He was ready for anything. He looked around the small studio apartment, with tiles in the corner and a sofa bed against the wall. The window was drafty, and the plumbing in the tiny bathroom was leaking, but that was all he could manage on his allowance from his work as a night watchman at a warehouse down the street. His wife got his car from the settlement, and his sons now share her car, so he had to take the bus to work. He looked through the mail and found a postcard with a photo. The card showed Elvina on a beach, probably in Hawaii. She was smiling and holding the hand of that little Asian girl he had seen at Wynn. She pointed at the men surfing. Elvina's breasts were even larger than he remembered, but her clearly pregnant belly was even larger. "Elva, don't get too close to the water, honey," I shouted to her in a tone that only a mother can use. "Mom," she grumbled, "how will I ever surf if I can't even stand near the water while Dad surfs?" She is now 6 years old and growing like a weed. Every day she looks more like her Aunt Grace, and I love her as much as I love her almost 2-year-old brother, Calvin. Over the past 2.5 years that I have been in Hawaii, Elva and I have gone through several phases. I went from being her nanny to her stepmom, and then finally, she just told me that stepmom was too long a word, so she shortened it to mom. Danny is Danny again, and Calvin, or Cal, is our son. I once thought that the sunrise I watched here in Hawaii wasn't so impressive when I watched it alone, but I never get tired of watching it with my whole family. And yes, I'm almost 41 years old, and I'm a mother, and my breasts are even bigger. They receive a lot of attention, but only one person can handle them. Losing Danny almost killed me, and I'll never take that risk again. By all rights, he probably shouldn't have taken me back. I was damn wrong, but I did this stupid thing only because I love him very much. Regardless, I probably didn't deserve a second chance at happiness, but none of us were happy individually, and we are delighted together. I think, on some level, he knows how obsessed I am with him, and that keeps him in love with me. Grace and I are very close friends, and I have adopted her habit of making sure that Danny only has ugly and old secretaries. Okay, sue me, I have no confidence in myself when it comes to my husband, but I will never let him go again. It took us a long time to get back to this point, but the heartache is finally over. What do you think of our final installment of the story? In my opinion, this part of the story was more vindictive than the first one, because in the first one we familiarized ourselves with the characters and their storylines. What was your first impression? Write in the comments. Until new videos.